Have you ever wondered why BlackRock is getting involved in cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and XRP? BlackRock and the other elites want to control us, so why are they getting into cryptocurrency that is supposed to be decentralized and uncontrollable? In this video, Max Keiser is going to expose why BlackRock is trying to control Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies, and why we need these cryptocurrencies to protect us from tyranny.
So BlackRock's terrible. You know, they're
Right.
one of the worst players on Wall Street. They're completely without morals whatsoever. Their business model is just repackaging stocks and selling them as ETFs. You know, they own more, their ETFs own more stocks than there are stocks, right? They're just peddle there, and they charge a fee for that. And they have incredible political influence that they use to make it easier for them to game the system. They become a useful idiot in this case. The thing about Graham is that Bitcoin was really the first major financial play in history where the plebs got to it first. Usually it's the reverse. Wall Street makes their money and then they sell off bits and pieces, right? Companies go public and the insiders make tons of money, and then the public can buy shares in the aftermarket, and the feast has already happened and they can buy shares. But here in this case, the feast happened by the plebs, by the people who were marginally on of society buying Bitcoin when it was $1 and $5 and $10, and now that it's getting close to 40,000, now you see Wall Street coming in. So it's really a reverse of what we've seen historically with markets, in that the little guy got there first and they've made a ton of money, and now Wall Street comes in and everyone's going to make a ton more money. So yeah, BlackRock and all these other firms, Fidelity, will launch ETFs, and it'll bring in a tremendous amount of capital. And the product itself, the Bitcoin ETF, is an inferior product to owning Bitcoin outright, just like the gold ETF is an inferior product owning the gold outright, because in the gold ETF, if there's a credit problem with the custodian bank and they go bankrupt for some reason, it says in the fine print that they can settle with you, the ETF owner, in cash. So you don't get gold for your gold ETF, you get paper money, which is the thing you're trying to avoid. Same thing with a Bitcoin ETF. It'll have contingencies in the prospectus that make it very much inferior to simply buying Bitcoin and putting it into cold storage and taking it out of the system. But nevertheless, it will unleash a lot of capital. And, we're going to get to a valuation of Bitcoin, which would be similar to gold. So gold is in the 10 trillion, approximately, market capitalization, the global gold stock that's traded. And Bitcoin is just under 1 trillion. So you're going to get a 10x on Bitcoin pretty quickly here. So you're talking 400,000 to compete with gold. I think we could get it on this move. You're going to get it definitely above 250,000 on this wave, on this move. Will we get to 400,000 on this without a correction? And Bitcoin corrects pretty severely every few years. Possibly. We'll have to see how it develops. But I have a feeling that because the fiat money world is collapsing so rapidly, and the model of the nation state itself is collapsing, that we could be pretty shocked on the upside in terms of where Bitcoin is going.
I want to expand here on what Max just said. A Bitcoin ETF lets the BlackRock and other elites control our Bitcoin. If you actually hold Bitcoin or XRP or any other cryptocurrency in a wallet, they can't really take it from you. However, with an ETF, it is essentially an IOU. If you own enough of the ETF share to equate to 1 Bitcoin, you essentially own 1 Bitcoin, but they hold the control. That is critical because they could confiscate that from you because they hold it. They have control of your Bitcoin. So for example, if you have your Bitcoin in a wallet and the government tries to come after you, or a big corporation tries to come after you, they can't get that Bitcoin because you have your wallet, you have your private key, you can keep it safe. However, if BlackRock and these other elites actually hold your Bitcoin, then the government can come confiscate your Bitcoin. These different corporations can confiscate it. You are at a risk that you don't need to take. They want to control cryptocurrency, and this is how they can do it, because they cannot do it with the native way that Bitcoin, XRP, and these other cryptocurrencies are set up. They cannot take it from you only if you let them.
The price of Bitcoin would go higher, right? If the dollar is going down, your dollar price in Bitcoin goes up. So we very happy to see the dollar go down. Bitcoin is already making new all-time highs in currencies that are undergoing hyperinflation, as we see in Argentina and Venezuela and Turkey. In these places, Bitcoin is already hitting new all-time highs because their local currencies are collapsing. The dollar is it's the cleanest shirt at the laundry, right? It's a fiat money, but it's on a relative to these other fiat monies, it's the less worst option. But eventually it too will go this way of all fiat money. So fiat money is, we're at the end game for fiat money, which was like a 300-year experiment. And then in 1971, of course, we went on all fiat money for the world when Nixon closed the gold window here in the United States. So this is all winding down. We're moving toward a post-fiat money, post-central bank, post-nation-state world, and gold will have a place in that world. And countries like we said, China, Russia, and others are aggressively buying gold. Central banks still settle in gold, and gold will still be around, and it'll still have a bid, and people will still buy it, and it'll still be a safe haven play. But as Paul Tudor Jones has said, all the dynamics that go in, the macroeconomic dynamics that go into analyzing and projecting where the prices of these things are going, he likes inflation hedges. He says, yeah, gold, of course, is a classic inflation hedge, but Bitcoin is the fastest horse in the race. And, I'm looking at the numbers here myself, and I'm figuring for every dollar move in gold up, you're going to get $30 to $40 in Bitcoin. So, it's a supercharged way to play the collapse of the fiat money world, which includes the dollar. The dollar is really in jeopardy. The country, the United States, is printing money just to pay the interest on the debt, just the interest, right? So that's debt monetization and a debt spiral. And the GDP is not going to suddenly go up 50x to create enough tax revenue to pay down that debt. In fact, the GDP is shrinking. The amount of the dynamics are horrible. For the fundamentals of the U.S. dollar are terrible, and everyone who's got a portfolio, and there's about $100 trillion under management by portfolio managers around the world, and that game is basically asset allocation. You're allocating your portfolio to avoid risk and get the biggest return you can. And the dollar is being downsized. People are moving out of the dollar. They're moving into Bitcoin. Bitcoin is now considered to be a safe haven. It's considered to be a risk-off investment, which is incredible because when we started back in 2011, when it was $1, it was considered to be the most speculative play in history, right? And now it's considered to be the safest asset in the world, safer than bonds. It's less volatile than bonds in 2023. Safer than the property market. Property market's collapsing. Look at all these commercial real estate deals every day. Washington, D.C., all these, New York City, these huge office buildings that were bought for $300 million are going on sale for $30 million. It's like the biggest markdown in commercial real estate. It's unbelievable. And of course, that commercial real estate is the collateral that holds together all the banks that make all those loans. That's their primary business, is making real estate loans. So that means the balance sheet of all the major banks are severely impaired, which means they're going to have to get a massive bailout, which means going further into debt, which means interest rates are going to go even higher, which means the dollar is going to be continuously under attack. And nobody wants the dollar. Nobody wants the U.S. Treasury bonds. And into this mix is Bitcoin as a safe haven play. It separates money from state. It's unconfiscatable. It's cheap relative to gold, way cheap relative to gold, and it's cheap relative to the bond market. The global bond market it's still incredibly cheap relative to what you could call the total addressable market, a TAM. Total addressable market for Bitcoin is 400 trillion, because that's the total size of the pot of financialized assets on planet Earth. And it's everything on planet Earth that's traded is heading towards zero against Bitcoin, because Bitcoin becomes the global reserve standard. Okay, I mean, because that's the root of all of the problems is the money printing. But the extension of that, the way to take it deeper, is to look at what drives Wall Street, and that is the dollar and fiat money. So anyone who was doing Occupy Wall Street should be, all about getting on the Bitcoin train. Our friend Lee, what's his?
Camp.
Lee Camp, right? Lee Camp is like, he came out of Occupy Wall Street. He made his bones on Occupy Wall Street, and we were talking to him about Bitcoin forever. He's not jumping on it. Tim Pool
got him on it a little. I got him on it a little.
Tim Pool, he's been circling the Bitcoin, for years now. He's not willing to come down to El Salvador and actually, if he got an open invitation. Joe Rogan, why is he playing dumb? What's wrong with Joe Rogan? I mean, he's a smart guy. Why would he be so tone deaf when it comes to Bitcoin? Where are these people? And the fact is that they're missing the boat. They're going to miss it. They're going to be left holding their dick, basically. Not to put too fine a point on it, but they're going to be out there, nothing. They got nothing, and it's all the party's moving to El Salvador. That's where the party is. It's got Bitcoin. It's got the beach. It's got volcanoes. It's got Max and Stacy. It's got President Bukele. It's got the Miss Universe contest. It's got pupusas. 3 for $1. You can live. You can feed yourself and your family for 50 cents.
It is so clear that cryptocurrency is outperforming fiat currency. Once we have a total collapse of fiat currency, people are going to turn more to metals like gold, like silver, but also cryptocurrency, because you got to think practical. When you think practically here, who's going to go to the grocery store and try and break up a little bit of gold to pay for the groceries? It's just not going to happen. Same with silver. It's just not really realistic. But what is more realistic is cryptocurrency. Just like you have with your credit card or with Apple Pay, with these different things, you can do it on your phone so easily. But this is why I think XRP is going to be critical over something like Bitcoin, because Bitcoin, yes, maybe it's going to be a great store of value, but if you try to go to a grocery store and pay with your Bitcoin, everyone tries to do that in the world, it's just not going to be practical. Bitcoin can only handle so many transactions per second. You'd be waiting basically an hour for your thing to process to buy your groceries. It doesn't make any sense. It would not be practical. However, other cryptocurrencies like XRP are way more practical because they can handle so many transactions per second. I did the math in one of my other videos that you guys can go ahead and check out after you're done with this one. But XRP can handle just as many transactions per second as all the credit card transactions in the US. This means as we look forward towards the future of currency, yes, Bitcoin is going to be a great store of value, but things like XRP are being critical to actually use our value to make exchanges in the open market, whether it's buying groceries, paying for your insurance, paying for your rent. Things like XRP are going to be critical for that.
And that will trickle down to the individual level at some point. Again, because once you start to go down the Bitcoin path, it just makes more and more sense. The more you study it, the more you use it, the more you realize how antiquated and ridiculous the current system is. Mm-hmm. And this affects everybody. So, I mean, as far as having different folks coming into the Bitcoin space of different political persuasions or different philosophies, ultimately, we all have faith that the Bitcoin is on its own vector. It doesn't need us, and it's taking us to a place we want to be, because nobody has any control over Bitcoin. It's on its own path. It's taking us somewhere. It was really the discovery of this protocol, which is the discovery of perfect money, and that has impacted our societies and our species. I mean, you could say that the same way. Let's say the discovery of fire, had a profound impact on human. The printing press, the electric light, these things have profound impacts on us as a species, as a culture, as a population. And it changes the direction, the path that we're on. The path that Bitcoin is on it's on a unique path where it crosses over from the physical world into the spiritual world in a lot of ways. I was talking to Jimmy Song recently, he's been writing some great books, including Thank God for Bitcoin. And he made the point that the concept of money is already an abstract concept to begin with. and that when you use gold, gold is a physical representation of an abstract concept. But when you get into Bitcoin, it's an abstract, more abstract, which is more in keeping with our psyches, in our communal understanding of what money is to begin with. So it's actually we're getting back to the beginning with Bitcoin. It's almost like the big bang of our consciousness is being restarted. We're being reset. Humanity's being to hit the reset button, because under the fiat money standard and the gold standard, humanity was heading toward extinction. I would say it's just the incentives driving the global economy were horrible. So the environments were collapsing. The biospheres are collapsing. The ability to maintain billions of people on the planet is not working, and the whole thing is collapsing. It needed to be reset. So Bitcoin is that reset button, and we're pretty young into it. We're only 13, 14 years into it. But now I think the next 5 to 10 years, you'll see that, that hockey stick moment where you go from kind of grinding along to suddenly, it takes a quantum leap, and there's huge change in people's consciousness. What is money? And I've said that Bitcoin demonetizes violence and war, because if it's unconfiscatable, it's foolish to come at me with an army to try to take my Bitcoin, because no amount of violence or coercion will separate me from my private keys, because if they're properly stored, it's unconfiscatable. There's nothing to do. So the idea of maintaining standing armies becomes kind of foolish, because you can't take the property. The property is unconfiscatable. So the only way you can get some of my Bitcoin is to come to me and say, oh, I want you to sell, I have some art I'd like you to buy, or I have a service that you need, and I'll do it for Bitcoin. So that's peace. So it monetizes peace. It monetizes love, and it demonetizes war. So that's the fact. That's an economic reality, and it's tied to the thing that people deal with every second of their lives. Every second of your life, there's somebody sending you a bill somewhere, some insurance company, some streaming service, some bank. Then there's a bill heading your way, and then every moment you check your iPhone, it's a bing. You've got another charge, right? So that is draining our collective consciousness to the point of becoming collectively brain dead. Humans, the walking corpses, the Aldous Huxley version of Brave New World, where we're just on the soma and the casino gulag, and we're effectively collectively dead. Bitcoin fixes this, and it resets. It goes back to the individual, and individual responsibility, and individual personality, and individual freedom. But it does so in this decentralized way, in this open source way. So in a lot of ways, it's interesting. There's a lot of paradoxes within the Bitcoin ecosystem, and in this way, it reflects some of the finest art and poetry that we have created over the millennia. Our species is full of paradox and simile and metaphor, and this is how we get along through life, is by differentiating between light and dark, and between right and wrong. And we're constantly making these thoughts in our head, and how do we fit? So Bitcoin, having a Bitcoin standard, means you have a one global measure of truth. Everyone maps to that truth. So it doesn't matter what your political beliefs are, as long as you have some mapping to the Bitcoin standard, you and I can have a conversation, because we have some commonality. Everyone ultimately would have some degree of commonality. Whereas today, in a fiat money world, we have fanatical opposition and no commonality. The people who are killing each other this month consider themselves to have no commonality. They consider themselves to be mutually exclusive. This world's not big enough for both of us, so one of us has to die. Right? So that's there's no commonality whatsoever. That's a fiat money system, because every time you make a mistake in a fiat money world, you can just print more money. And if you're the person printing the money, then you can take the moral high road and say, well, I'm right because I'm printing the money. Right? That proves I'm right, because look at my bank account. I've got all this printed money in my bank account. That means I'm right. That's my that's my moral prerogative. I'm right because I have a lot of printed money. And so the other side says, oh yeah, well, we're going to print a lot of money. Okay, so now what happens? Well, you have inflation, right? So, and that's, inflation just broke out, and it's not going to go down anytime soon, because you've got people at war. Ultimately, the weapon of choice is money printing.
Right.
The Pentagon is a giant money printer. It sucks up 50% of our tax revenue to support nuclear subs, you know, in the middle of the ocean, to go sail around, to try to defend property that's indefensible, when you compare it to Bitcoin, which is actually the only true property that's unconfiscatable, separates money from state. So these are all changes that are happening, and this is what the institutional money is realizing, the BlackRocks and these other folks, about Bitcoin. And so you're going to see a rotation out of these other assets like stocks and bonds and property and gold. They all get demonetized. All that flows into Bitcoin, and the Bitcoin price continues to head toward $1 million, $2 million, $5 million, and all these other things just continue to be demonetized and end up like the Venezuelan Bolivar, just litter, garbage in the street that people just, you know, use it to line their cat boxes. You know, it's cat litter, essentially. You're wrapping fish in this stuff. It's worthless stuff. It's just, it's ridiculous. You know, I would tear some up right now, but I don't have any handy. But usually at this point, I start tearing up paper money, and I'm like, hey, it's worthless. But, you know, it is. There's nothing to it.
Really interesting ideas on how cryptocurrency can change the world philosophically. As he mentioned, you can try and protect yourself against wars, against tyranny, against these different things, because there's not something that they can confiscate. When we think back in history, back to the medieval ages, people would come ahead and they would fight and confiscate each other's land. They would take people's cattle, they would take people's assets from them. This is something that we've had go on forever, whether it's a government, whether it's people trying to rob you, whatever it is, people try and take things from you. But with cryptocurrency, there's actually a way to set it up so people cannot take the asset from you. This is something that so many people are overlooking, but this is so critical to the future of Bitcoin, XRP, and every cryptocurrency that we see out there. And Max has some amazing ideas of how cryptocurrency could actually overtake fiat currency to be the main global power of exchange. And if you want to learn more about how insane Max thinks cryptocurrency could get, check out this video up here, and I'll catch you all in the next one.